Did it. There it is. First Ironman, making it happen. Texas, 140.6. Let's do this. All right. All right, let's talk about Ironman Texas. I first want to say that I am an Ironman. I actually finished the race. Yeah. So, April 27th, 2019, Ironman Texas, the North American Championship race. I did it. I finished. Got the finisher shirt. It was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but I did finish eventually. I'm going to go through the whole race, and by the time this video is over, you'll have a pretty good idea of what the Ironman is, at least Ironman Texas 2019. And it should be great. So, to start off, I'm going to be as transparent as possible. I don't want to make it sound like I did a lot better than I did. I'm just going to be so truthful about what exactly, like the training I did, how it went in the race, recovery, what I feel now. And I just want to be as transparent as possible because, finishing this race was really like one of the greatest times for me, and it was also one of the worst times of my life. Yeah, both, seriously. So, I did the race, I finished. Leading up to this race, so I signed up about 6 months before the race, and I told my wife, hey, I'm going to sign up for this race, and she says, well, let's make sure you can train every day for 2 weeks, and then you can sign up, right? I was like, deal, right? Okay, because at the time, I was doing 0 running, 0 swimming, and 0 biking. I was actually only doing push-ups at the time. And the first week, I think I did was doing 1 mile runs. Literally, I was running 1 mile at a time. And I think I swam half a mile, and I couldn't bike more than 40 minutes without my knee hurting, right? And that's when I started. That's like the first week. And then at the end, I actually only ran at the most 13 miles. I did bike for 6 hours. I did one bike for 5 hours, one bike for 6 hours, and then I swam 2.5 miles, no problem. But I believe that is the minimum amount of training. After doing the race, I would definitely say that's the minimum for a first time racer. And I now know that I needed to have run a lot more. And so here's why that happened. I had a plan to run 20 miles, even more than that, but I got sick 3 weeks before the race. I got sick twice, actually. 5 days before the race, I was puking my guts out. I left work early. I missed the day on Monday, the Monday before the race. So only 2 days before the race, I was feeling 100%, and I barely did a lick of exercise 3 weeks before the race. So that didn't really help me, but it didn't matter at that point. I was signed up. I was ready to go. And I was just like, man, I hope I trained enough to make this happen. Anyway, let's talk about the race. So, you get there. I got there in Texas on Wednesday. We stayed at an Airbnb. It was great. And we checked in on Thursday at the Ironman Village, a whole bunch of tents, and you can look at all the gear they had. You check in, you sign the waivers, you have a beginner Ironman meeting where they'll go over stuff. That was cool. We took a group picture. When I signed up for the finisher picks that you can get through Ironman, which were totally awesome. I 100% recommend that because once you finish the race, there's no pictures unless you bought the pictures. I mean, there's maybe some freelance photographers that you might be able to grab a good picture off, but these guys that you signed up with for Ironman, they were pretty awesome. They had pictures of the bike, the swim, and the run, all three of them, and I definitely would recommend that. All right, let's talk about the race. Swim, bike, run. Okay, so Thursday you go, there's this village, you check in, and then you get your bike ready, and then Thursday night there's a banquet, there's like thousands of people there. It was pretty awesome. The food was great. They just kind of went over a few things, the foundation, some stats, and whatever. It was cool just to be around all the other people. So on Friday you drop your bike off, and I was thinking, well, let me just leave my water bottles there. Anyway, I didn't. Saturday morning rolls around, you wake up, there was tons of people at transition, and I had my wife was driving, my parents actually came. They dropped me off at transition in the morning. I forgot my gels, my bottle. I was like, oh, my life's over. So we had to go back and get it. And then by the time we got to transition, I was thinking, oh man, I need to hurry because the swim is starting like in 20 minutes or whatever. So I'm like, I put my stuff in I put my gels in my water bottle. I filled up my water bottle actually the day before. I had a front hydration system. And then I had my gels in one bottle, just at the bottom. And it was so wet, man. Everything was wet. Like, my whole bike was wet. Because the day before, I saw these guys putting bags over their stuff, and I was thinking, why are they doing that? It's, like, hot. But then the morning of, man, everything was wet. It was just, everything was wet. It was like the sprinklers went off. Anyway, it didn't really matter, because I had a little fizz. Alright, so I make it over to the swim. I stand in the porta potty line because you got to go to the bathroom like right before. So there's tons of people standing in the porta potty lines. So I waited there like must have been 15 minutes or something in the line. Drop off your special needs bag to make your way over to the starting line. You get into the water. I got kicked a couple times in the face. And it was probably the most aggressive swim start I've ever done. People were just aggressive. Someone started yelling at me. I don't know, it was weird. I was like, whatever, I'm gonna beat you, so who cares? I'm in front of you. So someone behind me was like ticked off, I don't know. So it was pretty awesome swim. You swim out, you go back, you go towards the canal. The one thing I forgot about a little bit is that since there were so many people, I was looking up a lot more, which is fine. The only problem is I didn't train that way. And a lot of the other races I've done, it's not as crowded. So I didn't really feel like I needed to be training as much like that, like looking up. So my neck started hurting probably halfway through the swim. So I'm thinking, okay, well, my neck's hurting. It's not too much of a problem because the swim's almost done and I can relax my neck in the water. Not too much of a problem. Although I could definitely tell it was hurting. And it wasn't from the wetsuit rub either. And I usually just pain through the wetsuit rub because I just don't care. But I knew it was going to be worse because I started looking up more. Yeah, there was nothing I could do about the rub on my neck from this wetsuit by this time because we were all just going. So my neck started hurting. I get on the swim. It took me like 1 hour, 18 minutes, or something like that. I was feeling pretty good. So I jump out, grab my bag, run into the tent, and put my bike stuff on, jam my swim stuff into my bag. I had my whole gear on underneath my wetsuit. I sprayed on some sunscreen, right? I put on my arms, put on my legs, I sprayed on my neck, and immediately my neck just burned. Like it just stung because the wetsuit just rubbed it raw, And I usually never worry about sunscreen, but in this race, I knew it was going to be hot and long, so I thought, let's put the sunscreen on. But it just burned, and so I rubbed it off right away, and I tried it again just to make sure, and it stung right away again, so I thought, whatever, I'm just going to just deal with it. I'm going to deal with my neck burning. Luckily, my neck didn't really burn. Great for me. So I jump on the bike, and almost immediately, my neck starts hurting, right? And I'm thinking, okay, you know, I've had this happen to me before. I can deal with it. I just got to relax. Okay, so I mean, I've been on tons of rides. The problem was, I trained indoor. I'm in Utah, so it snowed all winter. It's freezing cold outside, so I trained indoor all winter, like October, even all the way up until the race almost. I actually only went on one ride outside. I mean, I dinked around a little bit, but it was pretty cold. I only went on one ride. It was the week before the race. 1 week before the race, I think I rode an hour and a half outside, and my neck hurt because I hadn't been training looking up like this, right, for so long, so my neck was hurting. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if I relax, it'll go away. I can deal with it. Long story short, it hurt the entire way. The whole 112 miles, my neck was just killing me. So I'm trying to like relax my neck. Like about 5 miles into the bike, I'm just trying to relax as much as possible because my neck's killing me. And this guy rides up next to me, and he's looking at me. He rode up next to me real fast. And he's like, "Hey, you're Scott from the YouTube channel, right?" I was like, "Oh man, yeah, that's me. What's up, dude?" So that was pretty awesome. Someone recognized me from the channel. I thought that was pretty great. That actually made me feel pretty good. I think it was Sean Bentley. I don't know his name. I looked up his channel afterwards. Seems like a really nice guy. Thanks. Thumbs up. So that was cool. And then I'm riding out about 10 or 12 miles into the bike. I'm really trying to relax my neck at the beginning because if I don't relax it now, it's just going to get worse. Long story short, it got definitely worse. But here's what happened. I was relaxing with my head down, and you got to stay on the right side of the road, right? You're over here, riding on the right, and then people pass on the left. So this area, there was a curb on the right, cones on the left, like every 30 feet. And so I was riding, and the road was curving to the left, and I was on the right already. So the curb was here. Anyways, I hit the curb. I freaking went over the handlebars and just biffed it. It was pretty embarrassing, but I really wasn't worried about that. I was just concerned about myself and my bike at the time. And then all these things start going through your head. I was like, oh shoot, man, is my bike hurt? Am I hurt? Can I keep going? Actually, I didn't, all I thought was I gotta go. But then I'm like, okay, it's going to be a long day, so let's just take a second. Anyway, my handlebars were crooked. The bike tech, there was a bike tech just was there in like a second. Right when I was getting up, the bike tech was there. I heard my knee was like bleeding. My knee was bleeding. My shoulder was bleeding. It was I just was not having a good day. So, and I swear I've only wrecked like a handful of times, and it just happens in the race. Anyway, so I wrecked on the bike. That didn't feel very good. And I fixed my bike. My knee's bleeding. It's not going to stop me, though. I obviously finished the race, so I just kept going. It started swelling up, but since I was just kept going, it didn't really expand or it get too inflamed. Anyway, but my DI2 was skipping. Like I would be in a gear and it would skip. Like literally every 10 seconds. I was like, wow, this is going to be a long day. A long day. Because I'm like, okay, I can stop and fix it, or I can just... It wasn't like so much where I needed to stop and fix it, but I just wanted to keep going and see what happened. anyway, so I'm going, and after about 10 miles, the Di2 actually fixed itself. It adjusted because it's, I don't know how it happened, but apparently it knew that something was wrong, and it fixed itself. I don't know if that's a thing, but it happened. It fixed itself. It stopped skipping after about 10 miles. That was fantastic, man. It was worth every penny. So I didn't have to adjust it at all. It just fixed itself. So you get out on the bike, and there's this pretty gnarly headwind coming on, and you're going about 12 miles an hour. You're going like from 20 to 12 or 14, whatever. And you're heading out 40 or 50 miles all the way out on this freeway, this toll road. Then you go back with an amazing tailwind. You're hitting 25. I think I hit 30 something miles an hour going down one of the like downhill areas on the freeway. It was pretty awesome. And then you go all the way down just forever. And you stop at the special needs, 60 miles in, 62 miles in, I think it was 65, somewhere in there. And at this point of the race, I was just thinking, okay, I need to chill because it's gonna be a lot longer. So halfway through the race, I'm actually feeling okay. Like 60 miles in, I'm like, okay, not too bad. I stop at special needs. I had a sandwich. I was thinking, hey, whenever I did an indoor trainer, I ate a sandwich halfway, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I had a sandwich, a roast beef sandwich with cheese, a whole one. It was amazing. I thought, I don't know if I'm going to eat this. I ate half of it, and I thought, wow, I'm actually pretty hungry. I'm going to eat the rest of it. So I stopped, and there was a whole bunch of people stopped there. And I thought, man, I'm just going to enjoy this because it's going to be a long day. I already knew it was going to be a long day after halfway through the bike. After this headwind on the bike, man, it was just kind of brutal. So I stopped, put my bike up next to the freeway. There was a whole bunch of people there. We're all just hanging out, talking, eating lunch in the race, right? There's porta potties, so I stopped, ate my sandwich, used the bathroom, drank the water. I was there 10 or 12 minutes, and then I took off again. And I asked this other guy, I was like, man, does your neck hurt? He's like, yeah, dude, my neck totally hurts. So apparently those other people there, their necks hurt. So I started doing this, right, on the bike. I saw another guy doing this, too. Because it's like, oh, man, your neck hurts so bad. And you're like, you're looking down a lot. And it was just a miracle I didn't crash again. So I was thinking, okay, my goal is to not wreck again. Because that would have been just so bad. I mean, my day would have just not been very good if it wrecked twice in one day. So finally, you make it off the freeway. You're at like 100 miles out. You got about 10 or so miles to go back to the transition area. At this point, I was pretty tired, but just normal tired like a normal ride. But I was just letting people pass me. At this point, I was like, I don't even care. I don't even care. I was like, I'm in this race for myself now. It started as a race, and then it just became this like adventure survival mode. Like, I just need to finish. Well, I wasn't thinking that yet. I was still going. So I get off the bike. You know, my wife's at the transition. My parents are there. They see me. Everything's cool. I walk over, grab my bike or my run stuff, drop off my bike stuff. The volunteer takes your bike. I kind of knew that. I heard that, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen. So I throw my bike to the volunteer. I gave it to him, and he takes it over, and they put it back. And you go grab your run stuff. You go to the changing tent. Put all your bike stuff in there. I'm just taking my time at this point because I'm like, man, I got to run 26 miles still, right? I got to run 26 miles. And that's the only thing I was thinking when I was getting off the bike. Like coming in the last 10, 20 miles, I'm thinking, okay, I better relax. I better chill because I got to set myself up for this 26-mile run. That's no joke. Like, that's another, 30% of the race. So just to be totally transparent here, I was thinking when I first I had a goal to finish the race in 12 hours. Like 11 to 12. And at this point of the race, the bike took me about 7 hours. You can see where this is going right now, right? Right? So keep in mind, the farthest bike ride in my training had only been 6 hours long. So 7 hours, one more hour isn't really a huge deal, but it is when you still got to run afterwards. Anyway, so I handled the bike fairly well, but I was pretty tired at the end of the bike, and I thought, okay, I've just been relaxing, I can do it. I can do this run. So I get off the bike, and I head out on the run. I'm thinking, man, how is this going to go? Like, I just don't know. So I started running. I was like, okay, I actually feel not too bad. So I started running. It was kind of hot. I didn't really feel like it was too hot on the bike. But when I got out on the run, it was pretty hot. So I started throwing water on myself like at every aid station. I was running. I ran for a while. There was 3 loops. They're about 8 to 9 miles each loop. 3 loops, 3 laps. So the first lap, I ran about, I don't know, 80% maybe? 75 to 80% of the first lap. You know, I'm like, okay, this hurts pretty bad, but I'm running a decent amount, okay? So then the second lap, I start the second lap and I'm thinking, oh, man, this is getting pretty hard. And I think I ran about 50%. So I'm running 50% or less. I swear, I want to be transparent because it must have been, I ran about half. So to be real honest, like walking is just not what I like to do, right? I've done a lot of races, shorter ones, but nothing like this. So I was thinking, man, but if I'm gonna finish this, I gotta walk. Like, and even walking hurts. So I get to the third lap, barely, right? At this point, at the second lap, I'm thinking, okay, the first lap was all right. It hurt still. But the second lap, I'm thinking, wow, I feel like I'm gonna throw up, right? I started to sip Gatorade. And at this point, you know, I stop at the special needs and I sit down for a couple minutes. And I think you start to accumulate blisters on the front of your feet at this point. And it didn't help that when I was pouring water on myself, I didn't realize that it was going all the way down to my shoes. Yeah. And so my shoes were like this sobbing wet mess. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this has got to be, I don't know how much worse they can get. Because now my shoes are all wet. And so I'm thinking, okay, I got to run in the sun. I can do this. I need to dry out my shoes. But at that point, my feet were wet. They were moist. They started to get some blisters. I probably would have got blisters anyway. Third lap rolls around. I pass a guy that's passed out on the ground. I don't know if anybody else saw this guy. Like right where the bridge is to go over to the swim. There was a guy passed out right there. And the third lap was so painful. And just to be honest, man, I walked most of the last lap. Like, we're talking 90%. Because it just was so painful. Like, it just hurt. Everything hurt. Like, the last 10 miles of the race was literally like the worst 10 miles. Okay, so the last 10 miles of the run was probably the worst time of my life. To be totally honest, I told myself multiple times that I would never do this again. Like, it was so painful. Like, and I started thinking in my head, okay, what if I stopped, right? What if I just quit, you know? Obviously I didn't, and I'm glad I did not do that. So I started thinking to myself, what if I quit, you know? Okay, I spent like thousands of dollars on this race. The last thing I ever wanted to do was go home and tell all my friends and my family I didn't finish and I'm not an Ironman. That probably was the icing on the cake there, that there's no way I was going to do that. So I had to keep going, right? Obviously. That's what this guy is right here. Boom. So, the last 10 miles, literally the worst time of my life. And I thought, man, there's no reason why anybody should have to go through this much pain. All these thoughts going through my head, right? And I'm just walking, like, and I never thought walking would be so painful. But the problem is that you transition a lot of that pain. The pain goes right to your head, like, as in you fighting this mental battle that just hurts. Anyway, I finished in like 15 hours and 56 minutes, and a lot longer than I thought. But after the race, this girl catches, and I ran like I ran through the finisher chute, and right when I started running, man, it hurt like fire, just burning my feet. And my knee, honestly, the whole race, my knee was like bleeding, and it was like swelling up. It was just from the bike wreck, and my shoulder was, anyway. Everyone's got their own issues. I mean, that's mine, but I'm sure someone else that finished around me or before me had the same thing happening to them. Like, they probably had blisters, their feet hurt, their body hurt. You're hallucinating out on the course. I swear I saw something that wasn't actually there when I was out on the last lap. But it was like the most painful time of my life. Like, I'm not even kidding. So, and maybe I should have known that, but it was a lot harder than I thought. But I finished, and I'm really glad I finished. It was amazing. It was a great event. And I crossed the finish line, and this girl, like, she's like a catcher, and she asked me, like, hey, are you going to do another one? She's kind of talking to me, and I was like, heck no. Like, heck no. Like, no, I will never do another race. I was like, this is so terrible. Right? It's so terrible. It was so bad. So I crossed the finish line, and then they have food at the end, and my wife is there, and my family, my parents came over, and they're like, you're doing such a great job. And I was like, well, it doesn't feel like I'm doing such a great job. Anyway, it was a great race. They put it together so great. No complaints whatsoever. Except just my neck hurt, man, and my knee started hurting 5 hours into the bike. So then I was like pushing with my left and trying to pull with my right leg. And that kind of later, I think, made my left knee hurt during the run because it was like overused. Anyway, yeah, my left knee started hurting. But my feet hurt like most of the time during the run. And I got brand new shoes, so that was really helping a lot, I think. The shoes will make a huge difference, by the way. Anyway, long story short, too, is that I finished in 15 hours, 56 minutes, and I'm proud of my finish. But the reality is that I would be more proud if I finished in like my 11 or 12 hour range, which I had planned. So, to prove to myself, I think I'm going to sign up for Ironman Florida. Right? Yeah, it sounds insane. My body is like, oh, heck no. My mind, no. You know, everything says no. But my pride is like I could do this, you know? So, I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm going to plan on it probably in the next week. I've been doing some thinking and planning. Anyway, that's kind of my experience, my first Ironman, class of 2019. I thought that was a little weird, too. They were like, hey, class of 2019. But whatever, I'll take it. So that's my experience with Ironman Florida, my first Ironman. I'm glad I did it. At the time, I was thinking, this is the worst time of my life. I will never do this again. And then the next day, I'm thinking, man, if I had just trained a little more in the run, and then I'd be better, you know. But I only trained for like 5 or 6 months, right? From zero, by the way. From absolutely zero. The only thing I had been doing was push-ups. Come on. Like, I have done a lot of triathlons in the past, so this wasn't my first race. I mean, I've probably done 20 triathlons. I did a half Ironman, right? I did all that. But that was a long time ago. That was years ago, like 7, 8 years ago. And I got married, and I got, things were happening. Anyway, that was my experience. Great race. They put on a fantastic race. The run was just killer. They did warn us, the panel, like a couple days before the race, that the last 10 miles would definitely be a challenge, and they were 1,000,000% right. Like, it was a challenge, to say the least. So that's my experience. Great race. I'm glad I did it. It changed me mentally. Like, I am a different person now. Like, I'm a lot more mentally prepared for things like this now. But let's wrap this video up, and hopefully this will help some of you realize what Ironman is all about. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna make another video, tons more videos, probably about like specifics of Ironman, but that's my race, Ironman Texas, April 27th, 2019 experience. Oh, I did it. There it is.